Okay, let's start here. I'd love, which I didn't tell you I was going to ask this, but I'd love to know of a story or something that kind of illustrates why you're so passionate about leadership teams in general. Like, can you think of a particular story that like highlights, man, that's why I'm so energized around this subject?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I just spoke with Ben about, it really comes down to at some point, the business is going to reach a sticking point where the leader is the linchpin, right? We call this stage 2 of business, right? Stage 1 is where you start the business, you buy the business, you inherit it, whatever it is. Stage 2 is where most leaders live, and it is you are the main battery source for the organization. You're also the spare batteries and the backup batteries too, right? The whole business hinges on you. And that's where I was, right? And until you can get stage 3 is deciding to do something about it, right? Stage 4 is where you've built the leadership team out around you and below them to where you're not the main battery and the backup. That's shared now with the rest of the team. Okay, which allows you to get to stage 5, which is reaching your legacy impact and entrepreneurial freedom. And I see so many people getting stuck in that stage 2, which is where I was. And it's not fun. It's not
Elaborate on that. Like, what does it feel like to be in stage 2?
Well, it feels like you can't take a day off, or if you do, you're getting up early. Even if I'm on vacation, like there was literally times I'd be on vacation and I was getting up 2 hours before my family so I could answer email, and then trying to go to Disneyland or something for the day, but I'd be on the phone while my kids were on a ride.
We should have a different word. It shouldn't even be called a vacation at that point, I don't think.
No, it's not. Yeah. You're just working somewhere else, basically what it is. And that's just, it's not fun. It's not free.
Do you think it's necessary for a period of time as you're building a business to be in stage 2?
I probably, right? I think there's certain humility that's generated when you're in stage 2.
Sure.
There's definitely some learning experiences there. But I think it builds the character that's required to, ultimately make that decision, right? Like we talked about on our hike earlier, you've got to get to a point where that pain of staying where you're at is so painful that you're going to endure the pain of the change. And I don't think that if it's not painful enough where you're at, because the change is going to be painful, you're not going to be committed to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, this overlays really well with what we talk about within Path for Growth, which is founder, operator, CEO, owner. And we often see that like that chasm or gap between operator and CEO is a stalling out point. It's one of the reasons why I love y'all's model that like literally the decision itself is a stage. So speak to me a little bit about what goes into someone actually making that decision. Like what causes that line in the sand moment for people oftentimes?
I think it can be different for everybody. Right. I've seen people lose a good client because they, fell on their face on operations, right? I've seen people a lot of times will have financial weakness in the organization. And what I mean by financial weakness is financial controls, the systems and processes around finances. And if that's the case, we're making good revenue, we're actually profitable, but the money's flying out the back door and we don't know where it's going. Right. So there's a lot of times there's some sort of a catalyst that happens in there that they just say, I'm not going to do this. It's not worth it.
Do you ever run into individuals that they actually have the foresight and like the proactive nature about them to be like, if I continue going the way that I'm going, the result will be pain. So I'm going to proactively make this decision to kind of basically do the stages we're talking about ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve?
I've seen that a few times. Right.
It's rare, right?
It's a very, very rare exception. And I don't think they generally engage for the long term because again, going back to, they haven't experienced that pain. So the first time they start to hit any kind of friction through the fixing process, they just revert right back to where they were.
Interesting, because that's the path of least resistance almost. Yeah. One of the areas where I see it sometimes happen is if someone, they don't run multiple businesses, but they own multiple businesses. Like they had that experience with round 1 and then they're like, I'm never doing that again. And for the subsequent enterprises they start, they're like, they're so ahead of the curve. And it almost sounds like man, we've got this unique opportunity to learn from our own mistakes, but also learn from other mistakes and just say, this is the next stage in doing things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the actual decision? Like, what is the decision that you're making at stage 3 to move forward and grow?
I think it's really reaching that point of no return of, I am not going to continue down this path. It's not worth it. That's where I was. We literally talked about shutting the business down. We were doing $6 million a year in revenue. We talked about shutting it down because we didn't want to continue on the path we were on.
What would you have done if you had shut it down?
I have no idea.
Luckily, I didn't have to. You're literally at the spot where it's like anything but this.
Anything but this.
That is one of the really hard parts about that decision-making stage is you are actually emotionally placed in a spot where you're not operating very rationally. And I think people can make some really bad mistakes at that spot.
Absolutely. I see it all the time.
Yeah. So when you have a conversation with someone that's basically on empty, and they're either like, I need to re-up and we're going to do something radically different, or I'm going to opt out and we're going to do something radically different.
Yeah.
How do you counsel and talk to that person?
You know, first I tell my story, right? Because I think it's a lot easier to relate to somebody who's been there and done that, right? So that's part of it. But you have to help them see what the future can be, right? And see that it's we're not talking about crazy changes out of the gate, right? They're incremental, right? Like I mentioned earlier, this is not something that it's not rocket science. It's not some crazy silver bullet that's going to come in and save the day. It's just simple things like clarity on expectations, right? Boundaries in place as far as behaviors go, clear measurables for success, right? I think most humans, especially in America, we're kind of wired to win, right? We want to win, but it's when it's unclear where the goal line is at for our team. How do they know if they won the week or won the day or won the month? Right. And if we can put some really clear, simple things in place around those, our team will go and keep us really happy.
It feels to me as though there's almost like there's a couple different paths, or probably a multitude of different paths of like, I've made this decision. I want to grow as a leader. Now what? And it's like, it seems like one of the paths is people literally just go to Barnes and Noble and they look for the titles or the covers that speak the loudest to them. And they're like, I'm just going to pick that up and go after that, which certainly isn't bad, but it's also probably not the most efficient just to get a smattering of content. When people actually make that decision and they say, okay, I want to do different things to get different results. Like, what do you advise in terms of what's the path that they actually walk?
So I think what ends up happening, at least in today's age with most people, is they will either, like you said, go to Barnes and Noble and pick up a book, or they'll go on TikTok and see a video, and they'll latch on to one thing, right? And that's fine if that's going to be the impetus to get you started down this path. But you have to look at the rest of the picture, right? So engaging with somebody who can guide you and facilitate those conversations and coach you through those things, that can be a huge value add, because while you might be focusing on one piece of it, let's say it's core values, right? We're going to go and put in core values. Well, that's fine, and it's a necessary part of it. But if you don't also put in accountability as part of generating what and defining what a right person in the right seat is, you've only got half the equation figured out, right? And we haven't even talked about everything else that's on the table.
Yeah. And I think it's really challenging to do on your own, because it's not like you're at that gap between operator and CEO. And it's not like, okay, now I've decided I want to be the CEO. So I'll just take my operator hat off and give that to someone else while I go be CEO now and learn how to do that. It's like you are literally managing the thing that you have built, which in some cases is a $2-3 million enterprise. That's a full-time job. And now you're trying to figure out how to be a CEO at the same time. So from your perspective, if someone's at that stage, when does a leadership team come into the picture?
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an interesting answer.
Yeah. I think it really needs to happen as soon as possible. And when I say that, there are different stages of leadership team, right? You could be a $2 million business and you've only got, 8, 10 people, 15 people on the team, but you should probably have a leadership team at that point, right? They might be more mid-level managers, right? You're still making the strategic decisions at that point. But you've got to have people who own accountability of certain parts of the business, right? Shared accountability. When everything falls on one person's shoulders, it's not a sustainable model.
Yeah. What's the why for as early as possible?
It's going to let you scale as fast as possible. Because when that one person is carrying all of that accountability, they're not going to be killing it in all those areas, right? They probably have one or two areas they're doing okay in, and the other two areas are really suffering because of it. So the faster you can fix that issue, the faster you can get the business unstuck and start building that momentum towards the dreams you want to be.
What do you want a CEO focused on? What are the core responsibilities, results, areas that they're investing their time and energy that you want them focused on?
I think it's different for every CEO. This is really one of the seats on the bus that I think is person dependent. Okay.
You and I might actually disagree there, which would be fun.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. So I think it's got to be because and when I say CEO, I'm generally also referring to the owner or the founder, right?
Sure.
They're not leaving. They're not going anywhere. So
at least right now, they're not.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure that it's going to fit their hardwiring. Okay. So if you've got a very financial minded CEO, then they should be leaning that way. If you have a sales and marketing minded CEO, which is probably most CEOs, most founders, they should be leaning that way and owning some big relationships and part of the sales process. They're probably going to be the best salesperson that they've got.
Yeah. Maybe it's not a distinction. Maybe we don't disagree. In my mind, I'm like, I want a CEO focused on the vision of the business. Where are we going long term, especially if they're the owner, because they have intent in their head about that.
Absolutely.
The culture of the business, the overall like shared values and behaviors of the team.
Yep.
Just again, because if they don't drive that, they're going to be bitter and resentful about what they end up with.
Yep.
And then the profitability of the business and the leadership team, if they don't have an integrator and they don't have an integrator model. Well, I guess, first of all, do you agree with that? Does that fall under the CEO umbrella?
Yes, if they don't have the COO or integrator in place.
Yes.
If they have that, then the profitability should probably live with that person.
For sure. And CEO is probably focused on revenue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, until they've got somebody who can come over and head of sales or marketing, then that should be handed off and the CEO is no longer accountable for that.
Yeah.
Then I typically would say we talk about being the most critical outcome, right? What's the singular measurable that you would look at for every person on the bus that would define success for that seat?
Yeah.
And if you were gonna go live on a beach and hire somebody to come in and be the CEO of Path for Growth,
I might.
I know. Thought you liked it in Phoenix.
I freaking love it in Phoenix. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
But what would you measure to tell you that person is achieving their results?
If I was hiring the CEO, you're saying?
CEO.
Yeah, sure. I would hire, or my critical outcome, to use your language, would be revenue. And then for the COO, if we were going to hire that role, it would be profitability, right?
Yeah. So for the CEO, we generally look at what's the enterprise value.
Okay, so the valuation of the business as a whole?
Correct, because if you're the owner of the business, think about just like owning a stock, right? You want that stock value to increase over time. It's the same thing for a privately held business.
Okay, and then the thought process behind, especially if someone's in that integrator position, we're using EOS language now. If someone's in that
I won't hold that against you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hopefully they won't either. So the critical outcome for that COO, the thought process on that being profitability is they have direct control over both our systems around revenue, but then also about how we're managing and attending to our expenses. Is that
correct?
Right?
Yeah, they've got to maintain gross profitability and as well as control the expense side of the equation.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So I guess the area that you maybe even double clicked into then is the CEO role in particular. You're saying, man, if their background and their bread and butter is sales and marketing, then beyond those core areas of vision, culture, the leadership team being held accountable if we don't have an integrator or something like that, it's like I want them for a period of time to be focused on the sales and marketing in the business. Yep. If they're more financial oriented, we're not going to twist their arm and try and get them to be a sales and So it's almost like, especially in that gap between operator and CEO, you're basically saying like, go to where your strengths are. Mm-hmm. That's not your full-time job, but that is probably part of where you should be spending your time. Does that feel right?
Definitely. It's part of we'll call it the flavor, the spice you're going to add to because you still need to be accountable for all those things, right? The strategy, the overall vision and culture of the organization. But what's your angle going to be on it? Right? Are you going to take an angle, a slant towards operations, right? Are you a really good operation person, or are you really good at finance or sales? Those are really the three buckets that are, make up most businesses.
Sure. You said leadership team as soon as possible, especially in those early stages where you're like, this is all on me right now. Yep. I need to start getting other people on board. What are qualifications for a leadership team member at that stage of business?
So in that earlier 2 to 5 million range.
That sounds right.
In there.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, first and foremost, it's mission and values aligned.
Yeah.
Right. They've got to fit the overall purpose of the organization. Okay. I care more about them than I do skill set, because I don't know about you. I'm sure you've got lots of clients who've done this, but I hired a lot of people based off of experience and skills. And then they came in and they didn't fit our culture.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a non-starter. So once you get that alignment, then you've got to start looking at strategic ability to solve problems. Right. So not only can they block and tackle and do the daily things, because at $2 to $5 million, it's a smaller team still. So they've got to be able to do some of the daily operational things, but they also have to be able to say, hey, I'm dealing with the same problem over and over here. I need to do something to fix this, right?
Yeah.
What's the process? What's the system that's broken? What's the improvement that we need to make so I get out of this, whack-a-mole game I'm playing over here?
Do you think that for someone to be on a leadership team at this stage, like I noticed a critical distinction in my first 2 years of business whenever I was doing hiring for the first time. And I was like, there is a radical difference between someone that can manage a system that has already been created versus someone that can build and then manage a system based on the need. Do you think the latter is necessary for someone to play a role in the leadership team?
Somebody's got to build a system.
Yeah.
Right. So now this might be, again, small team. You're probably still wearing lots of hats as the owner, founder, CEO. You may come down and build the system.
Yeah.
Right. And then hand it off to your operations person. You may come down and build the system and hand it to your marketing team. Right. But if you don't have that skill set, or if you don't want to do that part, or if it's not a good use of your time, then somebody else has to build that thing.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned be able to build and then maintain the system. That's a hard person to find.
It's a very hard person to find. Do you think it's necessary at that I actually think what we're talking about right now might be why businesses stall out around that 1.5 to 3 to 4 million. It is so hard to make that jump. And I think what we're talking about right now, it might be part of the reason.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's two things at play here. One, it's the person who can build a system and the person who can efficiently run in a system and improve it. They're not always the same type of just hardwiring, right?
Yeah.
The second thing that I think that a lot of people just get stuck on, and you've alluded to this already, is that integrator COO spot. So many times I will see the CEO, the founder, trying to sit in both seats, CEO and COO, and that is a really hard place to be. You want to try and get out of that as quickly as you can. I would much rather see, the operations director also being the COO, or the finance person also being the COO, at least in an interim until we have enough revenue and profitability to be able to put the right person in that seat.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you do make that shift, especially at, 2 to 3 million top line, if you're making that shift and you're saying someone else is going to basically, the organization's going to report up to the integrator or the COO, and then the integrator is going to report to the CEO visionary. Yep. Like you're basically making a bet on this structure is going to help us generate the revenue to be able to pay for the structure that we're establishing.
Right. Most of the time, CEOs are horrible at accountability.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of what makes us, and I'm a CEO, so I can say this, right? It's part of what makes us strong. It's part of our secret sauce. Is the things that we bring to the table also make us weak at accountability usually.
How does horrible at accountability actually show up? Like, what does that practically look like?
Oh, the number one thing I would say is probably unclear expectations.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that most of the things that we are frustrated with in our businesses are the result of having unclear expectations up front.
Yeah. You and I agree on that.
The second part of it is after the expectations, because I actually do a pretty good job, I think. My team may tell you differently, of setting expectations, but it's the systematic inspection of those expectations following and making sure you're getting the results and course correcting along the way. I fall completely flat there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So we operate with a visionary integrator model. It was actually inspired by spending time with you and your company that we did that. And Zach, I'm still Zach's fingerprints are all over our business. I'm still so grateful for that guy to this day, because we wouldn't be where we are without him. But one of the things that I notice as a key distinction between Zach and I in terms of our leadership style is he could go into a one-on-one meeting with someone They're all green on their what we call success statements, which is their like critical outcomes that they're responsible for. And he would just be like, okay, it's all good. Great meeting. Thanks. And it'd be like a 10, 15-minute meeting. Yep. For me, I'm like, there's always something to talk about. We can improve everything. I've got all these ideas of things we can talk about. Yep. And it's like realizing that like my ability to generate ideas and give feedback on existing things way exceeds people's ability to execute. And and that's not, or that's a reflection of me, not of the people, right? Yep. And so recognizing having a little bit of a stabilizing force is really helpful. So building in public, the stage that we're at right now is I'm constantly coaching myself right now. I'm like, dude, when you go into these one-on-ones, your team is great. They care so much. Like the people we have on board are cultural rock stars. It's like, I need to be a stabilizing force in those one-on-one meetings and not just be the idea guy every time we show up to one-on-one. It's hard.
What do you think it does to your team when it's never good enough?
Well, we should bring them in here. Yeah. I mean, and what's interesting about that is, this could be a broader, longer conversation is like, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, right? Yeah. So, and one of the driving motives, dark shadow side motives of a 3 on the Enneagram is never enough, right? And it's not, I'm not doing enough. It's I am not enough. And what's crazy that I've learned in leadership, it's one of the things that is like, man, a smack in the face look in the mirror is like, your standards never stay with you. Your standards always cascade. So it's like, if I'm feeling not enough, then my team will experience that as well. And so it's one of the reasons why I love leadership as one of the greatest growth, honestly, spiritual growth incubators is because I have to be firm in my identity for me to be able to lead well. And if I'm not firm in that identity, other people are going to be on the other side of that insecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wired the same way, right? Yeah. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, but I'm a minor 3. Yeah. And so it's that never enough muscle that just keeps coming in. And, if the goal was to sell $100,000 this month, you got an account manager in there who just sold 110. You're like, great, but it could have been 120. Right. And, we see this sometimes. We ask everybody to rate our meetings when we're done, 1 to 10 scale. And you'll have some people who say, it was a 9. It's like, great. Well, great. What could get you to a 10? It's like, no, it was a great meeting. Like, well, then say it's a 10. Right.
What the heck? Yeah.
Right. And, Michael Eweth, the founder of Next Level Growth, wrote a blog on this recently, and it's just so good. It's like, what do you think that does to the psychology, to the motivation, to the morale of that person who, if they go 8 from the free throw line, they literally could not have made another shot. They should get a 10, right? And if we go in there and say, well, yeah, but that one wasn't a swish, right? Are you actually, in our minds, sometimes we think we're motivating them by saying they could do better. But what that actually ends up doing in the long run is demotivating them because they start to take on the mindset of, well, no matter how hard I try, no matter how good I do, they're not going to be happy.
Yeah, winning is an impossibility for them. Yeah. Okay, so we've deviated a little bit, but we talked about mission and values alignment being core for those early leadership team members. What else are you looking for? We also said manage and build systems.
Yep. Yeah, they've got to be able to manage and build the systems. They've got to be good people leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something I think so often we overlook, but they have to be motivational. They have to be good communicators. They got to be inspiring to their team. And I'm not talking about like running out during the all hands meeting, with a cape on and fireworks going off or anything, but they've got to be able to clearly articulate the message to the team. Why, right? Because a lot of the times in business, the why is the most important part. It's way more important than the what or the how, right? And especially in entrepreneurial worlds where we have a lot of freedom in how we do things. We're not bound by corporate policies and all these other things that drive people like you and me nuts. But you want to make sure they understand why we're doing them and some of the principles and boundaries that we play within so that they can properly cascade that down to their team and lead their team well.
And then it seems to me as though there's got to be the qualification of like they actually want to be a leader on the leadership team.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which when you are approaching someone and saying, hey, we're at the stage of business now where I want to involve other people in the strategy, the vision of where we're going, and I want to expand this circle a little bit. What are you casting for them in terms of expectations from them as now a member of the leadership team?
I think it's the same things we talked about there, right? You've got to have your accountability chart sheet drawn,
sure,
right? And it's got to be crystal clear. The way we teach the accountability chart is as you move down the levels of the organization, we use verbs to describe what we call our obsessions, right? So you've got your mission for each seat. It's called the MMOs. The mission, well, in one sentence, what's winning look like for the seat? The MCO, the most critical outcome. How am I going to measure success for that seat? And then the obsessions. What are the things I want that person obsessing about while they're in pursuit of that mission? As we go down the levels of the organization, the obsessions all start with verbs, okay? And it's own at the top, right? They own the sales and marketing processes, playbooks, the execution, and the outcomes, okay? At the manager level, they might drive the process playbooks. At the individual contributor level, now they're following or executing the process playbooks.
Okay. Own, drive. Well, explain for me, what's the difference between owning and driving?
Sure. So driving means I'm going to take what you give me and I'm going to make sure my team is following that thing.
Distribute the work.
And then if there's something wrong, say we're hitting a sticking point, the process isn't giving us the result we want, I'm going to cascade that up to the person who owns it.
Okay. And they're not responsible for coming up with, hey, here's what we're going after.
Correct.
They're responsible for, hey, here's how we're going after it.
Correct.
Okay.
The own part of it is, one, you make sure it exists.
Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes it doesn't. You make sure it's up to date, documented, accessible, right? Especially around processes. I see sometimes, they live on a server. Which folder, right? And it's just a scattering. So you want to make sure they exist and they're accessible. You want to make sure they're up to date, they're properly trained and executed on, and they're actually giving us the results we want. Because I've seen so many times where we have a process, and if we follow the process, we don't get the result we want. Well, we got to go back and change the process, right? And it's up to somebody to throw that flag and say, hey, we need to update this thing.
Mm-hmm. So basically, they need to embody the mission and values. They need to understand what they're owning or driving as it relates to their role in the business. Mm-hmm. Any other expectations that you're painting for them to be a part of the leadership team?
I think the other part that is really, really important is the humility that comes in, right? Yeah. They've got to be able to take the feedback, but part of that is they also have to be able to dish it out, right? Yeah. So I look at the leadership team. Yes, there's usually that COO, that integrator, the second in command. There's that seat that is theoretically the one who holds everybody accountable. But how much more effective is it if everybody's holding each other accountable, right? And that leadership team, when you can build that level of cohesion where we can all call each other out when we're out of bounds or when we're not delivering on our expectations or maybe we're not being completely forthright or something, that is where the magic can really, really happen.
Yeah. So again, if someone is going from operator to CEO, they're adding in this leadership team element. What is the biggest thing? Like, it's not like they're going to snap their fingers and it's like, man, we made it. What is the biggest thing that they need internally as the leader or owner of the business in order to traverse that gap? Like, what's the character trait for people that do it well that they have in common? Or maybe there's multiple.
Yeah, there's probably a lot to it. I would say they've got to make sure that they have the humility again to understand they can't do it all themselves, right? That's going to be that decision point of, okay, we got to do something else here. But being able to let go, right? That ability, like I was saying earlier, it's like if I want something done a very specific way, right? If that is how I'm going to communicate it, I have to be able to say why. Like, why does it have to be done this way? Why does something that's a little bit different not work? And sometimes there's valid reasons for that. Sometimes it's a legacy thing. That one thing happened years ago, and that's why we don't do it that way anymore, because that one time, that one thing, I don't know, that's a valid reason to put a requirement in place, right? And if we can help them understand that if you can let go of it, and if they can get it to 90% of the way there, and you might have to polish up the remaining 10% or whatever, but how much more capacity do you have now as a leader when you're not having to put 100% of your time into that one thing?
One of the things that stands out to me with regard to this is like our mission is we exist to help impact-driven leaders step into who they were created to be so that others benefit and God is glorified.
I love that mission.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're a part of it, man. And just one of the things that I constantly reflect on as like one of the reasons why there's nothing on the planet right now that I would rather be doing is like business, especially small business, and owning or leading in a small business. It's like it will force you. It is a forcing function of you will have to become more patient. You'll have to become more humble. You'll have to become more courageous. You'll have to become more creative. You're going to have to become better at people, or you fail. Or it doesn't work. And that's really the decision that you're making. And it's like, man, whenever we actually start to embrace it, like, this is so hard, this is so uncomfortable. And it's like, that's when you know you're in the sweet spot, man. And it's like, that's where all the growth comes from. It's one of the things that I love about it.
Yeah. I don't think that, we talk about entrepreneurial freedom being that fifth stage, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's comfortable.
Yeah, right? Isn't that interesting?
It's because you're dealing with a whole different set of issues at that point, right? You could be looking at acquisitions. You could be looking at different types of growth, right? There's a lot of other things that come into play. And it just comes back to, what do you want? Like, what's your why, right? Is it going to bring you closer to your purpose and your mission as an organization? Which way are we going to go here?
Yeah. I want us to have further conversation on this that we're going to put in Basecamp for Path for Growth members, just on some of the gray and like the nuances. We were talking on our hike earlier of like, man, especially when it comes to developing leaders, like books make it seem black and white. And a lot of times there's shades of gray. So I want us to talk about navigating those nuances. But to end this conversation, what I would like to do is, say you're having coffee with someone and they're telling you, Chris, like, I am freaking exhausted. Like, I am done. And I am literally thinking of like, this business is successful. And I'm thinking, I kind of want to just go get a job is what I'm thinking right now. And they're at that decision-making point. How do you respond to that person?
First, I tell them I know what the heck they're talking about, right? Because I've been there. And I ask them what they want to do. Like, do you really want to go get a job? Because some people do. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right? Sell your business, shut it down, hand it to somebody else, whatever you want to do with it. Go punch your clock, do a 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to fix your business, here's the path, right? There are certain things we can implement very quickly that will yield a very quick ROI, right? And you will see big changes pretty quickly. The interesting thing, like I said, they're not some sexy new tool that we're going to teach them that's going to change the world, but it's the disciplined execution over time. It's just like losing weight, right? You want to get fit, you want to lose weight, you want to be strong. Now I guess you can go get Ozempic, right? So let's put that on the side, right? But besides that, right, there's not some secret thing, but if you eat right, you exercise pretty regularly, you're going to be in good shape. The exact same things are true of the fundamentals of operating a business. If you put the right structure in place, you put the clear expectations in place, drive accountability, have clear measurables, have the right, again, controls around finances and all those things, you're probably going to be okay in the long run.
Man, well, I appreciate this conversation, and we'll do round 2 inside Basecamp. Thanks, Chris.
Sounds good.
Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. If you want more content like this, we've got some killer stuff planned. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. Let's go, let's go, let's go.